Welcome to Magic and Mysticism, the podcast, with Tommy Burnett, New York City's favorite mind reader, where each week he converses with some of the leading mystery performers in the world. Today's guest is Master Mentalist, Enrique Enriquez. So sit back and relax while I introduce your host, Mr. Tommy Burnett.
Oh, hi, Tommy Burnett here, New York City's favorite mind reader, and today I am your host. Welcome to another episode of Magic and Mysticism. Today we have a phenomenal guest, somebody I've wanted to meet for a very long time, and he very graciously agreed to be on the show. His name is Enrique Enriquez. Before I bring him on, though, I want to show you a trailer from a documentary about tarot and about Enrique, and it's called Tarology, the Art of Tarot. And here we go.
In order to speak the language of the S.E.C.R.E.T tarot, we need to be dumb. The S.E.C.R.E.T tarot is a system of gestures, and in every single character we see a posture that somehow means something to us because we have experienced that situation.
He really has a way of turning the ordinary into poetry. We'll start talking about the interactions between the pictures and what's happening, and what you do in your mind, you just start connecting it to your life and a story comes out. He is connected by a cord to those cards. He is walking tarot.
A skeleton is an alphabet. It's a limited set of elements arranged in a very specific order. But if we were to rearrange the elements, we will get a different creature. Or when we rearrange a tarot deck, we get different messages.
Enrique seems to be like a bad boy, and I think we need more people like that.
The connection between the tarot and the Kabbalah, nonsense. The connection between the astrology and the tarot, made up. The tarot came from Egypt, that's nonsense. Carl Jung is the most popular author in the tarot world. He wrote 2 lines, look at the cards and describe what you see.
Bourgeois sentimental twaddle does not interest him. And if we don't have people that are willing to rub people the wrong way, no fires get started. You know what tarot is at root? Whenever people are like, what is tarot? And I'll say, paying attention. When you pay attention, you can't not get a message.
The body shows the destination of the mind. We see that woman looking back, but her legs are moving forward. She's suggesting, I'm done with this. It's as dumb, as simple as that.
The cards on the table, they behave like a homeless man who is crazy and is rambling. You narrow down all that rambling, all that madness into something specific, and you can then map analogies.
Here's this guy, right, that claims to not know very much about the cards, and yet he is taking it into a mainstream focus.
My role as a tarot reader or whatever is to be a translator, and that's it.
I'm not a psychologist. I am not entitled to provide the solutions to anybody's problems. I don't have the answers to anybody's questions. I don't know anything about anything. The only thing I can do is to show you the cards and tell you these cards are connected, and then you take that, go home, call me in the morning, I don't know.
There you go. And now, it brings me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Enrique Enriquez. Hello, Enrique. How are you?
Very good, Tommy. How are you? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. Thank you for being here. So, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, which to me is insane, but if there's no one who doesn't know who you are, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you live, and what you do.
There is a cloud right now, occluding the light of the sun. So at the moment, I'm not quite sure who I am, because I'm seeing myself very darkly. And so let's see if it passes. Otherwise, I will turn on a light. But in any
Okay.
case, I don't know. I mean, I am just, at the moment, I focus mostly on waiting. I spend my days waiting, but I don't wait for anything specific. So waiting for me is not about time, it's about a space you create where things can happen. So there is no anxiety, because there is no specific end in sight. And yes, for the longest time, I I have been dealing with tarot cards, and for a while now, I stopped in a way, and I have been talking to the birds and traveling in dreams, which is a nonsensical job, but somebody has to do it.
Yeah. I actually, you came to me in a dream last night. I don't remember much about it, but I remember waking up thinking about you. And
See, that means that this interview already took place.
there you go. Okay, well,
We're
thank
just,
you.
revisiting it.
Yes, yes. I woke up this morning because I remember you sent me a quote from Derek Galileo
Yes.
about him about you visiting him in dreams, and um, um, so when I woke up this morning, I actually felt very honored that you visited me as well. So
Okay.
I appreciate that. Yeah, now we can see you a little bit better.
Yes, I turn on the lights.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
You
I
can't
know
expect the sun to do all the job,
exactly. Yeah, no,
Sometimes
I have a big window over here too, and that happens to me all the time. But right now it's a beautiful day, and I have birds outside. Speaking of which, well, maybe we should do this more organically. But what is your fascination with birds and the language of birds?
Well, that came through the tarot. I mean, when you look into the Tarot de Marseille, you learn that they say the Tarot de Marseille speaks the language of the birds. So I really took it to
Whoa.
heart to figure out what that was, right? And mainly because I had no interest in the occult discourse around the tarot, nor any esoteric
Right.
practice. So I decided, okay, maybe this is my way in. What is this, right? And turns out that yes, there is a very fundamental idea of an original language that at the same time is a universal language that people call the language of the birds. So I look into that for a long time, or have been doing for a long time, because there seems to be two ways to understand what that is. One, and this goes straight to the names of the cards in the Tarot de Marseille, has to do with wordplay. There is the idea that these little names that you have there, and I played a little bit with that in the movie. Those names are puns that somehow suggest other things. So you have Le Pendu, which is the hangman, and Le Pendu, people will hear hard bread or things like that. La Maison Dieu, the house of God, or otherwise called the tower, people will hear there the house of God, or the soul and his God. And so I looked into language as an oracle for a long time. I spent about 10 years sitting at a cafe playing with words, and somehow that was the focus of my practice for I mean, since my daughter was born, she's 13 now. And a few years back, I wonder what would happen if this symbolic language that everybody speaks about in metaphors is turned into something literal. What would happen if I actually just talk like a bird? There's no, no translation. It's just you do what you're supposed to do. And I have been really surprised by how everything I have been looking for in terms of my relationship with science and the symbolic world came together in that gesture. And my suspicion when we talk about any kind of oracle or divination system is that the job consists of giving the other person an open object so they can feel it in any way they see fit, right? They make it useful as they see or as they can. So now I deliver these messages, which are purely bird nonsense, and people tell me what they mean. People tell me what the birds told them. So I understood at some point that this is as effective as the tarot for what I am looking, which is to create this moment of clarity in which I am not prescribing anything. I'm not telling people what they should do or what they should think, how they should feel, nor I'm giving them metaphors. I'm allowing them to create their own metaphors and their own in a way you take them outside of language, because you take them to this sound that is just pure experience. And then they had to come back and they have to bring their own language into the equation. And it's a constant source of surprise and joy for me to do this. I usually, the way it works, I record myself with my iPhone. And I just send these things to people, usually to the people who interacts with me that day. So there is a random aspect in the sense that if you wrote to me that day, I may answer as a bird. So of course, in a way, I'm popping in their lives. I'm appearing in their lives out of nowhere. And at the same time, then I retreat. So I leave the space open for them to figure out what it is. It's so far very pleasant.
And apparently so for everyone around you too, because you have this air about you. It's just kind of is like peace and joy and quietude, which is very very attracting. And
thank you.
No, I appreciate it.
We are responsible for our presence. I mean, our presence is the ultimate performance. So as we walk around, we are altering the landscape, and we have to be aware of what we are doing. Meaning, we have to listen and we have to see, and then people tell us what we mean. And we can either expand that, make it grow because we like what we hear, or we don't like what we hear, so we change. So we are in that dialogue with reality all the time, but we are the ultimate sign, our very presence.
Wow. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. No.
So what are you drinking?
I'm drinking. This is not a plug for any beverage, but I am drinking
okay.
Dr. Pepper. Yeah.
Classic. Perfect.
Yes. And I'm not plugging Dr. Pepper, so unless they want to pay me, then I'll be happy to. So I first heard of you from Kenton Knepper's website with a booklet that you wrote that he produced for you or with you called An Act of Imagination.
Yes.
And I thought it was brilliant. I still think it's brilliant. Um,
Thank you.
I've used it a couple of times, and because I'm going off of my courses. I know you've written a lot of stuff. You've written stuff on mentalism. You've written stuff on tarot. You've written stuff on the language of birds. Um, um, I'm actually going to skip ahead. If you wouldn't mind, you've talked about imagination, tarot reading, symbolism, both terminology, tarot readings. I'd like to briefly go through each topic with you and just have you riff on each one.
Sure.
And so, why don't we? Well, okay. What got you started in this whole thing? Because I assume, I won't assume. Did you start with tarot in the beginning, or did that come later on, or did you start with magic and
Oh, I guess it's a very average story. I mean, I grew up watching this magician on television every Saturday, and he was also the owner of the only magic shop in the city. So now
okay?
and then my father will take me there, and we will, I don't know, look at things and get some tricks. And then sometimes my father will travel and he will bring back magic tricks. He will go to, I don't know, Miami, New York, or whatever, and he will go to magic shops, which is really strange.
Mhm.
My father has nothing to do with magic. And he will get a few things, bring them back. So my brother and I, we will improvise or prepare, I guess it's not improvise, magic shows for the family on Saturdays. After we had always, on we had lunch on Saturdays at my grandmother's house. So you have, aunts and uncles and cousins, and after lunch we will make these little shows of magic. And so I guess really the question that seems urgent right now is, when is that we stop being magicians?
Mhm.
Because we know that children stop being artists when they are 12 or 13. By that
Okay.
time at school, they tell them you need to get serious, let's stop with the drawing and then get into learn how to write an essay so you can get into college.
Right.
And of course, you have the very few that people say, oh no, you have a talent. So what we're going to do is that we're going to ruin that for you. We're going to teach you perspective and chiaroscuro, so you draw the way you're supposed to, not the way you draw. And well, okay, we have what we have, and that's that. But I think that something similar happens to magic, in the sense that there is a point in which children stop using their imagination to transcend the physical world, right? I mean, there is a point in which playing with your hand as if it is an airplane is no longer enough. You can no longer travel that way. So you get like a toy airplane, right? And you use that for a while, and then at some point you know that the only way to really travel is through an actual plane, and that's when you're ruined, right? So you realize that at the beginning everybody's a magician, and suddenly we stop using the faculty of imagination, and we live in a world that is the main crisis of this world is a crisis of imagination. We just follow trends, whatever it is, and we repeat the same nonsense at eternity. Rich people has no imagination, so if they have a building, they take it down and they say, what are you going to do? Another building, just bigger and more expensive. And that's the world we live in, right? And so we have to understand, not just magicians or mentalists, we human beings, we are the custodians of the symbolic world. We are the custodians of imagination. and we have to preserve that because it's ethereal, it's apocryphal, it's not there if we don't look for it. And now I don't remember what you asked me, of course, but
I don't either. I think I asked you how you got started, and
yeah, it was like that. It was,
yeah.
Eventually, I met that magician,
Mm-hmm.
and we became friends, and that has been a great honor for me. And I met his kids. His son is also a magician. His grandson at this point is a magician. I mean, he's like 80 years old.
The very beginning.
I can't hear you, actually.
You can't hear me? Okay, because I can't hear you either. Boy. This is not good. Hang on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear me? No, wait a minute. Hang on, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Wonderful. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I know. Can you hear me out?
But I just turned off my mic and turned it on again.
Can you hear me out?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me out?
No.
Oh boy. Can you hear me now? No. Can you?
Yes.
Yes. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, everybody who's watching. I apologize. So, can you start that over? Because I didn't hear you.
Okay, no, what I was saying, I started as a child watching these magicians. Eventually, I met this man and we became friends. I mean, I remember I did some performance in Caracas almost 20 years ago, and he came. And my father also came. So at some point, he looked at my father and said, I remember you. And of course, yes, we used to go there. I mean, not all the time, but he was, kind enough to remember his face. So magic is something that was always there. At the same time, again, at some point you forget, or at least I forgot, and you deal with other things, and there are, I don't know, girls to chase, and you have to buy milk or whatever. So I returned to it late, and mostly I think that what interested me was what we call divination or readings, or I guess the idea of we have a relationship as human beings with signs. We are always looking for a sign, even if we are not believers in anything. We are always looking for some sort of fortunate sign. And I was very interested in that, which I felt was very urgent, and you could write a poem or make a painting, and eventually you hear that somebody felt this or that. But when you give somebody a sign, the reaction is immediate. They are there with you, and somehow it means something to them that they can incorporate to their lives in an active way. So I decided that was my focus. That was what I wanted to explore. And in this city, I think at the same time, it was the only way I found to connect to the city, to sit at a cafe and read the cards and wait. That's where I started waiting, right? So, yeah.
What led you into? I mean, you kind of said it, but what led you into more tarot and waiting?
Yeah, I just felt I explore a lot of different divination systems. I was trying to understand. I mean, I guess to some extent, I always wanted what I just recently found, which is to find my own way around this. So I studied different systems, and I started to understand what connected them and how do they work, how do they relate, do we relate to these things, and what is there a common language in all oracles, which again, that's in a way what we call the language of the birds. And so I learned different things, but I understood that I was better suited to deal with tarot cards, because perhaps, I mean, I am part of the Western civilization. These images came from that. I am not Chinese, so to me, pretending to read the Qi is a little weird. I don't know. I'm not African, so tossing bones is also weird. So, I know all my training as an in the world of images prior to that somehow lend itself perfectly well for me to look at images and talk about. So I guess that's the reason. And then I guess that the what became important for me was to understand that the images were there in a way they were a given. For, I guess I got lucky maybe at the time when I got interested in the tarot. Living in Caracas, you could also only find the Tarot de Marseille, maybe Spanish cards, but there was no New Age stores with, you know, a million decks with Star Trek and Bambi or anything. So I got lucky, I say, because it turns out that that particular type of tarot has a very peculiar language, a visual language that is unique to that deck. And so that's what I learned. And then I understood, this language, which has to do with understanding how every image contains the other images, lends itself to an understanding of reality in which analogies speak to each other. So it's a language of analogy, which is the common root in all oracles, right? And I mean, when you read Artemidorus, the very famous interpretation of dreams, he's just tracing analogies between these things people see in their dreams and daily lives, and say, well, this is good, this is bad, this is going to happen because this looks like that. And you realize, well, that's the foundation of magic. Things that are alike affect each other, which at least in the symbolic world. So I found all that useful, and I found that I could relate to that and also make it useful to other people without imposing any kind of belief system onto it. You know, without selling any kind of faith. This is what it is. It does what it does. You take it, you use it, go home.
Did you invite somebody today?
I'm sorry?
Did you invite somebody named Roberto?
I told somebody, yes. But it's
okay. Because he's here. He's backstage, so I don't know if he can hear anything. But do you want me to bring him out, or?
No. He's just wanting to watch the.
Okay. Hi, Roberto. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, this is popping. Anyway. So I've always been interested in language and the commonalities that different languages from all around the world have similarities and commonalities. And for one, when I was growing up, I was made to feel like I shouldn't say anything, I shouldn't talk because I sounded different from everybody else, and My parents made me do a silent act because they didn't want me to. They didn't want me to get hurt. I mean, they weren't trying to be mean. They were trying to help me out, and um, I refused because I wanted people to hear my voice and get used to it. Um, but it took a lot of years for me to get used to it. And then it didn't matter so much if other people,
Of course.
you know, but it's still something that I grapple with emotionally. But um, I had no idea that the language of the birds was connected to the Marseille tarot. I'm more. I know more about the Rider-Waite.
Sure. Well,
That's
it's
um,
natural.
yeah, but I've always been attracted to the imagery of the Marseille deck, and I'm probably going to end up getting one because um, after watching most of Trilogy, I haven't finished it yet. Um, I I think it would suit my style and my personality a little bit better than right away. But um,
Sure. Yeah.
anyway, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Please.
No, please.
No,
you, you go.
I just wanted to say I think that what you're saying, I mean, things only really get interesting in the sense of starting to vibrate and almost fall apart at the edges, right? When you get to the edge of something is when you actually feel whatever that is, right?
Yeah,
You have a life experience that puts you at the edge of language. So to you, language is not transparent. For most people, language is transparent. They don't think about it, just do it. And
right.
I mean, I came to this country, I had to start speaking again. Like, I had to learn another language. So I understood the edge of a language. And I had a similar experience in the sense that people will tell me, well, if they notice an accent, they will think that you are stupid. That's literally what people told me.
Yeah,
If they
yeah,
notice an accent, that means that you are
yeah,
not smart. And
yeah,
so eventually you get over it and you realize, okay, I'm here, and hopefully I have something to say that will mitigate any noise. But at the
yeah,
same time, when people ask me, where's that accent from? They hear me speaking. I detect an accent. They're always very fake polite. I detect an accent. Where's that from? And I say, well, that's my accent from New York. I acquired that accent here. In
yeah,
Venezuela, I didn't speak like this. I have a different voice. It's my New York accent. And of course, they don't like that, but okay.
yeah,
In any case, I do feel that we are, as human beings, we are, creatively speaking, we are self-sufficient. If we stand outside, we draw shadows. Those are the oldest drawings. You just stand out and you see these figures moving around. They're fantastic. If you close your eyes, you make light, and you have dreams and things you see that in a way they're not supposed to be there, but they are. And when we speak, we make images.
mm,
So we have in our very presence everything we need for creation, as long as those things cease to be transparent. As long as we understand, I could move these shadows to make something interesting. I can speak in a certain way so I am pleasing or intriguing or something, right? And I guess my deepest belief at the moment is that conversation, this thing we are doing, you and I,
mm-hmm.
this is as good as it gets. This is what we have to offer to the world. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be a PhD. You don't have to have, 3 degrees to be able to carry a conversation that is meaningful. So our job as human beings, the exercise of the human condition consists of being able to refine our language in such a way that when you talk to somebody, you are not just talking about, how your shoulder hurts or the weather, but you can actually put something on the table. And I do feel that in that the great um, laboratory for me in that regard was the tarot, because I believe that the experience of the tarot consists of two simple gestures. We look at something and we give it a name. So you pull three cards, you look at them, you say, oh, this is what I see. You describe what you see. You do it again, you do it again. 20 years later, you are able to look at anything and give it a name. It's not only, I mean, it's a training, because the tarot is almost like scaffolding for sight, for vision, right? Once you learn how to see, you don't need the cards. So once you learn how to look at something and give it a name, then you can be out in the world and you bring meaning and you bring poetry, I don't know, beauty to anything. And I think that's the job. The job, I mean, at the moment, I just want to be a person, which is not in high demand, I understand. But I don't want to be a magician or a poet or a tarot reader. I just want to be a person, somebody who is capable to hold a conversation. That's that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I want to. That's what I want to. Yeah. So, one thing that I first noticed in the trailer of Trilogy is you holding up the tarot cards and pointing out the symbolism out in the world, which I know, but if you make it so apparent just by holding it up and you know. So let's talk about symbolism for a little while. What is the importance of symbolism?
Well, I prefer to think about signs in the sense that a symbol to me is the expression of an absence, right? We have this thing that symbolizes this other thing that is not here. And I'm not too interested in that. I'm more interested in signs, in this thing that presents itself and by its very presence is meaningful. So, for example, the other day I was walking with a dear friend, and there was still snow around. This is like a month ago or so. And we noticed that there was this garden, and there was a circle, like a circular hole carved in the snow, like a perfect circle. Wow. So we moved forward to see what's happening here, and it turns out that there was this garden lamp, like a big light bulb that he will shoot light on and up, and then melt the snow in this perfect circle. And of course, that in itself is beautiful. You don't need anything else. Then we went to do some stuff, and then on our way back, we noticed that there was this very young tree, also standing on the completely surrounded by snow. And I noticed that around the trunk of the tree, there was an emptiness, a void. There was also an empty circle, as if the warmth of the tree had melted the snow that was really close to it.
Wow.
So you have, this is to me, when I speak of a sign, I usually speak of the insistency of a form in time. You have the idea of, okay, I don't know, a black cat ran, and that's a sign. And to me, that's not a sign yet. That's something worth noticing maybe, but it's only a sign when you find it again, when it insists itself upon you again. So we have the first circle, which is a nice event. But as soon as we saw the second circle around the tree, we have a sign, we have a form that is worth noticing. And then my friends say, a tree is also a light. And to me, that's the operation I'm interested in. And in a way, I would say the main enemy of reading signs or dealing with symbols is hunger. If you're hungry for meaning, if you're desperate because you need to know if this woman is going to call you tomorrow, what happens when we are hungry? We eat all kind of crap. So you immediately will accept any sign, any symbol, and just swallow it. So it's very important to have a detachment from reality, just enough as you can pick and choose what you eat. So for example, I mean, I have a very specific use of signs in my life that usually are not related to my daily life. I know that most people find their daily life absolutely fascinating. I don't. So my again, I mean, consulting 3 fortune tellers to see if you should order chicken or fish, no. But I have a certain interest. I mean, first of all, I think that existential problems are first and foremost formal problems. If I ask you to draw a circle like the one that is behind you, you can do so and you immediately know where the problem is. Because you drew this thing and it's flat on the left, or it looks like an egg or whatever. It's not a circle. So you can go about fixing it. You retrace the circle until you make it nice. And in a way, the same thing happens with a marriage. You started a marriage and say, okay, I want a perfect marriage. And then you start looking like an egg too. It's weird. It's not the shape I hope it will be. So you keep reworking. It's a formal problem. There is the arrangement of the elements have to fit in a certain way so there is harmony. Just as with the circle. Of course, it's very easy to understand how a circle is supposed to look. It's a lot harder to understand how a marriage is supposed to look. So it takes a little bit more time. But what I'm trying to say is it's not esoteric. It's not conceptual. It's not psychological. You fix it the way you fix a chair. So I reserve my questions not for the mundane, but for the most useless things. And lately, for example, I have been preoccupied with black snow. Here in the city, we have black snow. Yes. And it's something that happens because we are in a hurry. So snow falls and it's all wonderful. The first snow in the season is like the first kiss. First time you kiss a woman is wonderful. And then it goes downhill from there, right? Because then you have this thing in the ground and you want to go, to your job or whatever to go buy milk. And this thing is there. So we have to take it out, to remove it, to deal with it. And what happens is that as soon as we remove it, we set it aside, this dust, which is a quality of the cities, is in a way invisible to us until it lays on the, suddenly you look around and your shelves have beards, right? And you realize it's all dusty. So the snow in the cities get covered by this black dust or whatever it is. So snow becomes this really strange material that looks like from another planet, because it's no longer snow. It's just this really weird thing. And I have been looking at this, and this particular winter, I felt that I had to resolve my relationship to it, in the sense that I felt compelled to have a sympathy for black snow, mainly because the words black snow are beautiful. And if you have a beautiful name for something, you have to go for it. You have to actually pay attention to it. So you have this thing around and everybody hates it and everybody complains and, nobody wants to look at it. I mean, black snow is like homeless people. you don't want them to be there. Which I'm fascinated also by homeless people, because
Yeah.
I have been talking to sparrows long enough to know that they are the same thing. But in any case, I'm looking at all these black snow and thinking I have to figure out my relationship to this thing, because I want to love this thing, but I still don't know how. And then I mentioned this to a friend of mine, and we were walking, next to this big pile of black snow. And she said, I mentioned this to her, and she said, well, if you poke it with your finger, it's white again. So I said, yes. So if you poke it, light comes out. Like if you have a curtain and you poke holes, you have the stars. So you can bring light just by poking this thing. It's like potential light. And she solved the problem for me. So that's what I love black snow, because you can always poke it and it goes back to white. So that's how I deal with signs in my daily life. If I'm lucky, I may arrive at something pleasant that I can share with others. But as you may see, it has no use whatsoever. And that's why I trust it. The day that I offer you the solution to something, run away.
Yeah. Beautiful. So how does imagination play into all of this?
Well, I think imagination is important to understand the present. And I know that we hear over and over that we need to live in the present, and somehow we are led to believe that that's some sort of vacuum. You're here, and that means that there is no past, there is no future, there is no memory, and there is no anxiety. It's just, this is it. And I don't trust that. I think that the present is like a puddle. The past time itself, the past and the future, it kind of goes down and deposit itself in the present. So anything you are looking is here and is itself, when it is this thing in itself, but at the same time it brings about memories, and it brings the possibility of becoming something. So of course, when you understand the language of or almost like the grammar of the world of forms, of the symbolic world, you understand everything is about to become something else. That's how dreams work. So you understand that the future of a form, anything you're looking at, is another form, right? And again, I mean, the future of just pure light is a tree. And then you can understand, a tree is light. It's this thing shooting out, trying to reach the sky. But of course, at the same time, you realize, well, but a tree, when you look to a naked tree as we have them now, it's like the branches are like the veins, the blood vessels in the eyes, which in turn are as the roots of the tree, which in turn are as as a river that keeps, moving and getting smaller and smaller until it takes the entire planet as an eye. So imagination allows you to understand that everything that is there is what it is, but it could be something else. And I find that extremely important.
Yeah. Wow. Well said. Yeah. Wow. I could just listen to you for hours. You speak so poetically, and I know you're a poet as well, but just your everyday speaking is so poetic. It's very inspiring.
Thank you. But that's the job. I mean, the job is to bring something to the table that is not, I when you deal with people, as I did for years, reading the cards, they bring like this dead fish, and they put it on the table, right? And here's make sushi with it. No, you clean it up. I can't. I mean, I can't. I mean, there has to be. I guess it's a self-respect. It's also respect for the other, respect for the dignity of the moment when you meet somebody, and then of course that includes a respect for the dignity of language. Going back to the same thing. I mean, there is something extraordinarily insane about the fact that we just push air out, and that air makes images. There you go. And no, it's fine. It's incredible that we create these objects that we call words that somehow have a consistency that affects our emotional well-being just by the fact that we utter them. And there is a responsibility with it, and that's what I mean. When we don't look at the shape of language, the sound, the form of the words, the letters, we are literally responsible. And of course, language is one of the main ways we have for imagination to materialize, because we have these things we see when we close our eyes and they are amazing, but if you don't present them in language, if you don't translate them into language, then you can't share them. And I think that's the job. Again, I mean, I there is this thing in the Bible where Adam starts naming everything at the beginning. So depending on the version, he gave names to things, or God told him the names of things. But either way, he's just creating these personalities, these realities for everything, right? And I feel that in a way, our job is to go back to paradise. We have to stand at the center of the Garden of Eden and name everything anew. And of course, tomorrow we name it again. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, you've already given me a lot to think about, but I want to dive even deeper here. So in the movie, you say that in order to understand Marseille Tarot, you have to be dumb. Can you expand on that? I think I know what you mean, but I'd like to hear what you mean.
I was having a French fries with my daughter 2 days ago at this cafe I go every day. And I pointed to her that there was this young couple, a man and a woman. They ordered a bottle of wine. So there was like this bucket, with the bottle of wine, and they were talking. And I told her, what do you think that means? And of course, my daughter is now 13, so she's in that age where expressing herself only works if you are 13 too. So I don't know. Okay. So say, it means that they expect to spend the entire afternoon there. It doesn't mean anything esoteric. I mean, they didn't ask for a glass of wine. They asked for a bottle of wine, and you only have 2 glasses. I mean, 2 people with 2. There is no third or fourth glass, so we would assume that somebody else is coming. What I'm saying is completely idiotic. It's being dumb, right? You look at these people and say, yeah, they want to spend the entire afternoon here. Maybe, I don't know what they are, boyfriend and girlfriend, friends that haven't seen each other, but obviously they are committing to a bottle of wine, which means that they will spend all this time there. So what I'm saying is not extraordinary in any way. It's just you look at things and take them face value without trying to impose an elaborate, construct on them. So it's the same thing. I mean, when you look at cards, for example, you have people talk about the fool card, and then they go to Buddha and to the wisdom of this and that, and it's just a guy walking. So if you accept that he's a guy walking, which is an experience you understand because you walk, or most of us, and even if we don't walk, we understand walking. you know that if he's at the beginning of a sequence of cards, he's arriving somewhere. But if he's at the end of a sequence of cards, he's leaving.
Mm.
And then you understand that the same image can have all these names: walking, arriving, leaving, without stopping being the same image, which is what happens. You at some right now you are a mentalist interviewing me. 5 minutes ago, you were a dog owner.
Yes.
The dog came up, and
Mm-hmm.
in a couple of hours, you will be a guy making dinner.
Yeah.
So you're always you, and at the same time, the context situates your identity in all these different functions. So at the end, to me, being dumb is to accept that, if you have a knife and you cut a fish, right now you're the guy cutting the fish. I have no. I had some sort of epiphany a couple of years back. And I mean an epiphany because there are moments in which you finally find the language to talk about the things you have in mind, and you can articulate quite so. So we were at Beacon, this town, upstate New York. It's about an hour or so from here. And we had rented this little room in a house, very old wooden house, near the mountain. So we were there in the morning, and I was talking to the birds, and this cardinal came. This beautiful red bird just came, and it was wonderful. And that was that. But then after lunch, we were at this restaurant, and I was leaving the place, and without looking, I just grabbed a few mint candies, the kind they put at the counter when you're leaving.
Yeah.
I just put them in my pocket, and later on, I decided to eat a candy. So I took it out, and I realized that the wrapping, the paper, had a cardinal, and the brand was Red Bird.
Oh, wow.
So it's beautiful. I mean, these things are beautiful because you understand. I mean, the presence of a sign connects you to some sort of totality, to the wholeness of things. You understand. You just got like this piece of string in the entire web, but the existence of this little piece of string proves the web is there in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at this thing, and what I understood immediately, going back to signs and symbols and all this, is it would be misguided to try to understand the symbolic meaning of a red bird. That's just a distraction, a detour, it's anecdote. The actual meaning is in the circularity of the event. How you find this thing here, and then the same form insists itself upon you further down, and it closes a circle. And that sense of circularity, that sense that things fit and make sense, is a sense of harmony that in itself has an effect on you. And that's the nature of design. So, of course, it's something that transcends language. It's not about, talking. It's not about interpreting. It's not about defining. It's just about being dumb. It's about being there and accepting that these things have a dignity.
Mm. Yeah. Going back to when you were showing the symbols or images from the tarot out in the world, you also talk about the gestures,
Yes.
like the people in the tarot are doing. Did you figure that out on your own, or did you
Well,
learn that?
I really try to look into this idea of the language of the birds, and I found very little and actually the only person who actually talked to me about it was Jean-Claude Flournoy, who is the man who makes my cards, and the cards are in the movie. And he had his ideas about it, and he had the idea that before the language of the birds was something that had to do with words and wordplay, it was purely visual. So I couldn't say that I found a lot about it. I had to figure out a lot myself. But of course, there is the reality of these images in the Tarot de Marseille, in which you know that you have the devil, which is a guy who has two slaves underneath, and then you see the tower, and it's kind of the same main figure and two guys underneath. So you, or you have the lover, and then you know, oh, there's one person at the center, and then two people next to it, and you realize again, through analogy, you see, oh, but each one of these images, in a way, responds to the same form. It's the same arrangement of elements. It's just what changes is the actual quality of them. So you have a woman holding a book on her lap, and you have a woman wrestling with a lion, and you understand is the book became the lion, and that in itself is poetry. But at the same time, then you have to reflect on what are the implications of a book becoming a lion. And you're, well, knowledge became this thing you have to wrestle, to grapple with. Knowledge became restless. Knowledge became something you can't control, or that you feel compelled to control. And so you have these small flashes of images that are what you follow in a way. You don't even follow the identity of the images. You don't say, oh, La Papes means Pope Joan, which in the Middle Ages there was a legend. It doesn't matter, because at the end, what you have is a woman sitting with a book, and we can understand that. Especially because my belief is that the images of the tarot are outdated. These are images that don't speak to the reality of our moment. The only way we have to update them is to go beyond the anecdote in the image, to go into the physical reality of them. You know, you have the bateleur, the magician, is a guy standing behind a table, and we understand that. I think I have been living in New York for 20 years, and only once in my life down on Broadway I saw people playing three-card Monty. You know, like on cardboard boxes, they have these cards. Once in my life. So I cannot say that that image of the magician, you know, like a street performer with a little table, is part of my reality. No, but I can say, okay, there are guys who sell, you know, cases for the iPhone, and that's the same image, you know, or anything, pirate DVDs, or so you understand. It's like this morning I was having that conversation with a friend about the devil, and say, well, the devil is in a way an outdated idea. I don't know, it's like a cartoonish idea, you know. But there is a knot. You have these people being tied by a rope. So the idea of the knot, the idea of being tied up to somebody else, maybe against your will, is something we all understand, because we have had girlfriends or partners or jobs or I don't know, even a dog that maybe you don't like, you know, say, okay, I have to deal with this thing until it dies. And so we understand that idea. And my feeling is that we need to go beyond the anecdote, and that means beyond the identity of the images into the form that inhabits them. Of course, once you do that, that's what I'm doing in the movie. I'm showing you that you can see the tower in a building out there, but you can also see the chariot in a bike, because in a way, I remember talking to Chris DeLeo, the director of the movie, and telling him, I don't want to be shown in this movie reading the cards on a table, because I'm actually not interested in that. I'm interested in how the tarot is a key to understand the poetic intelligence of the world. So we have to show that. I mean, I stopped doing readings for people a while ago, because I don't think that's the best use of the cards. Of course, that's a weird thing to say, because we assume that that's the only way to play the game. So you say that and people feel lost. But I mostly teach. I teach people how to look at the cards. So we expose ourselves to the logic of the images over time, which is very different from looking at them from half an hour or an hour. And as we do that, the images really affect us. It's like radiation. At some point, your mind starts making all these connections, and you see things in a different way. And it's I always say it's erosion. It's like you don't break the stone. You just work it with a drop of water for a long time. So that's that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you don't do readings anymore, but you do teach. If anybody wanted to learn from you, how would you like them to contact you?
They can email me or contact me through Facebook, and we can talk. Yes,
Okay.
I find very strange when people ask to be my friends on Facebook, because I don't really know what I mean. I mean, this morning
Right.
I had this woman had 22 portraits of herself wearing different caps, and I don't know how to relate to that, or what do you
Right.
expect from me? I
Right.
don't know about that. So, but
Yeah.
if you send me an email and you state your intention, I can understand and we can have a dialogue. Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid that I don't have probably anything useful to say to a performing working mentalist, because my reality is very different, or my expectations about what I want are very different from that. I work every day, but that means I teach people, and it's all through emails, and it's all, especially now, completely, delayed in space and time. And
Right.
then I make these bird sounds that I send to people. That's the extent of my performance, which I consider a performance. And in a way, before this pandemic happened, I was already working mainly through the virtual space, because I have been making use of the iPhone, and the not only recording but sending things, messenger, emails. Um, so when this thing started, I wasn't affected, because I was already living in this virtual world, which to me has no difference whatsoever with the real world.
Right.
um, we are the same people. Here we are, and we make use of these formats in the same way
Mm-hmm.
that there were other
Mm-hmm.
formats we made use before. So, but I do find, I mean, my practice has a lot to do with that. I put a sign in the world, and I wait for an answer that could prompt a dialogue or not, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the job. And it requires, I guess, on one hand, generosity of the other person. The person who receives the sign has to be generous enough to accept it and say thank you, and
Mm-hmm.
not to say, okay, but what is this, and give me more. But they, oh yes, I can work with this. And at the
Right.
same time, it requires from me to not to fall into the temptation to speak. You just send a chirp, and you don't try to indoctrinate anybody about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, the idea of prescribing modes of being is something I'm completely opposite to.
Yeah.
So now and then that looks like magic.
Well, I'll be honest. When you sent me from Bird Sounds last year on my birthday, and I really appreciated it. It really felt very personal to me. Um, and it, uh, it to me it was more than bird sounds. I really felt like it was communicating to me, and I found it very not only fascinating but something that I uh, wanted more of. Um, and it's a very unique way of communicating with someone. And if no one else, if no one else appreciates it, I do.
Thank you. No, it means a lot to me because, in a way, I just feel is in a sense, it's pure communication. It's the intention. When some ornithologists will say that when a bird speaks, what he's saying is, "Here I am." And in a way, that "here I am" is almost like a hologram, because there is, like an ad in the papers, because yes, it's "here I am," but at the same time he's saying, "Here I am, and I'm a robin, I'm a male, I'm ready to mate, I have a 2-bedroom nest somewhere." Everything is conveyed in that little "here I am," right? But there is that sense that I find extraordinarily important of every time we speak, we are saying, "Here I am." And when the bird, if you think about birds, they define their territory by singing. If you're a bear or a dog, you go around and pee stuff. You pee on things, and then people say, "Okay, this is Tommy's territory."
Right. Yeah.
Don't do it at home. But
No.
but but the bird, the bird goes away. He goes south because it's cold, and then he comes back and starts singing. And then again, he creates his territory, which is virtual, right? And there is something extraordinarily beautiful about that.
Yeah.
It's almost like a drop of water. It's a drop that falls and then creates these ripples. And you say, "Oh, now that guy is there." That's what we do. We create our territory by speaking.
Wow.
So we go back all the time to the same thing. I mean, it's language as the foremost material that we have to express our humanity and to express our creativity, without having to be poets or writers or, I don't know, songwriters. It's just we are people, and people talk. And sometimes, the simplest people can tell you something extraordinary, and the most eloquent people just bore you to death with pretentious nonsense. So it's something that is very democratic. It's there for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm fond of my little bird messages, and I'm very happy with that. I collect all the reactions when people write to me, when they write back and say, "I felt this or that," and of course they are sometimes extraordinary accounts, but at the same time, many times there are extraordinary reflections about the nature of language, the nature of meaning, the nature of silence, and that sense of all the things that happen in that space that has no name, that is part of our human condition. I mean, I know that the French and the German, they love to say that language creates our reality, but there is a reality beyond language that is also there, and things that have no name also have a dignity. And of course, it's wonderful when we find a name, but names are dangerous too, because naming something is like trampling on it. It's like naming is shedding light on things. So you flatten the thing, you eliminate the shadows. And so we have this dual nature in which we hope for silence, but we can't shut up. So if we get there, if we get to this beautiful expression of silence, we have to tell someone. We have to break the silence to talk about the silence that we achieved. But that's the experience of being alive, and I think it's fascinating. And it's not only fascinating, but it's self-working and portable. We carry language with us. We don't have to carry a luggage or anything, And I appreciate that.
It packs small and plays big.
Exactly.
Yeah. Going a little further with that, what do you think is the best way to make a stronger and deeper connection with your participant?
Well, I think every person is different. It's the same when people say, you talk to birds. No, first, I don't talk to birds. I talk like a bird, but I communicate with human beings.
Right.
Now and then, a bird, an actual bird, will talk back. But it's not birds, it's that guy, that bird. He was curious enough or weird enough to want to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, just as birds, you can't just say sparrows or robins or blackbirds. They are individuals. That's what I have learned. We are not all the same. I mean, the audience, the public, it's not just an homogeneous mass of nodding robots. Different people require different things. So I confess that the only way I feel that I have to make an impact is to work one-on-one. I try to avoid talking to a lot of people, because I feel that then when you say becomes information, and when things become information, they are immediately discarded.
Yeah.
But I can talk to some. Actually, you see it, because if you're talking to one person, the communication, what you create there is extraordinary. You bring a friend along, and it's okay. You still can do something. The moment you bring the fourth person, it's over. This is something else. Right? So I understand that that's not useful again for performers. Performers want to perform in front of an audience. But I guess that you have to acknowledge the fundamental dignity of every person, and that can only be done individually. Even if you are in front of a crowd, at some point you have to look at somebody, and you have to look at that person, and you have to talk to that person, not like a prop or like some sort of thing that you are using, but so somebody you're co-creating something. It's people are fascinating, even when they disappoint you. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think. Well, no. Let me rephrase that. I think that everything that you said today so far applies to all mystery performers, whether they think so or not. Even if it's only one thing out of everything that you've said, and believe me, I'm going to be watching this interview over and over, because you have said so much in a little bit over an hour, which is probably for you, an everyday thing. But for me, there's a lot of hidden gems in what you said, which for me in my life right now as a human being is very important. So I thank you for that, but I also think that for anyone who's watching this or will watch in the future will definitely find something that fits for them as well. So don't say that what your experiences might not be good for someone else, because there's always something in there that is good for somebody
Yeah, I
else.
agree, and I thank you for that. You're very, very generous. But I also think that that takes work. You have to. I mean, I learn whatever I learn by watching a lot of people, reading a lot of things, and then you have to figure it out. But not not looking for the didactic, that sense that people want like 10 rules to follow, and that's that.
Right.
That never had any use for me. It was never that way. You have to somehow translate whatever it is that somebody else is doing into your own experience, and then make it useful. And maybe it's just a little thing, as you say, and then you have to figure out. Everybody gives you a piece of the puzzle, but you don't even know the shape of the puzzle.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
And this podcast is not about the normal, 10 rule thing that you have to, this is more about the meat and potatoes of of the inner versus the outer. You know, and some people, a lot of people might not get what this is about, but so far it has been attracting the people who are meant to listen to it. So, um,
I appreciate that. Yes, I think it's important to create. Again, it's about creating space, and you create a space for
yeah,
some ideas to circulate or to have an existence, to have a reality. Yeah, I
yeah,
think you say something about. I mean, there is the outer world out there, and then there is the inner world, and I think they pour into each other. You know, the
mhm,
outer world pours inside of you, and then becomes part of your inner world, and then as a result, you put it back out into the outer
yeah,
world, and you have this
yeah,
thing going on all the time. And and again, it takes. I guess the beautiful thing about that symbol of infinity that we know
mhm,
so well is that you retrace it. It's not, you don't just
yeah,
do that, you're done. You know that
right,
you go over and over, so you correct the curve, so to speak, over and over. So your relationship with reality, based on your own inner world, gets redefined over and over and over, and gets reshaped.
mhm,
I find
mhm,
it. Um, I mean, you know, we culturally speaking, we hate aging and being old and all these things.
mhm,
I find getting older so much fun because you kind of get those lines right. You know, you get better,
mhm,
and
yeah,
there
yeah,
is more to refine, or maybe less to get rid of. And you know, uh, somebody this morning, somebody was saying to me, most people understand addition, but they don't understand subtraction.
mhm,
You know, we want bigger and better, more and more and more and more, and then at some point you realize, well, but you have to get rid of a lot of stuff to get the right line. You know, you have to get
yeah,
rid of all the other lines because this is the right one. And the perfecting of life, being perfecting the art of being alive, is an overwhelming job. It's a joy, but at the same time it's a full-time job. I think
absolutely.
things like it could be anything, magic or mentalism, or the cards or carpentry. These are things we use to bounce back. We put ourselves out there because we're making a chair, and then the chair give us something, and we say, okay, I could do better next time. And there is something in that, you know, the self is not a tower, it's a bridge. And if you don't have that, I mean, if I don't have you there, I can't speak. So whatever you like about what I'm saying is happening because of you.
Right, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I agree with that 100%. Uh, as we've been talking, there've been more and more birds coming outside my window, and I want to see if you can see this.
Oh yes,
Yeah, but
wonderful.
an hour ago there were like maybe two birds out there, and now there's about 20 of them. So uh, I don't think that's a coincidence.
Well,
It might be, but I think maybe they sense what we're
yeah,
talking about.
but I do like coincidences, or I think that I mean there are certain words that we have learned that numb the tongue. They are like, you know, when you
Yeah,
go to the dentist and they give you something and then you can't
yeah,
speak.
yeah. Another
And
thing.
one of those words is synchronicity.
Mm,
The moment
mm,
you bring that word into the conversation dies because we all assume
right.
that we know what we're talking about, so that's it. And it's like when people talk about, and this is very prevalent in the tarot culture, they talk about the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's famous idea. So every time you outline a story, they say the hero's journey. Of course, the hero's journey. And I tend to detest that because those things go against individual experience. I'm not talking about the hero's journey. I'm talking about this thing that happened to me. I'm not talking about synchronicity. I'm talking about this, this event that took place right now. And of course, when you look at cards for a while, you realize that the important thing is not the cards, it's the space in between them. And that space is actually made out of time. That space is, cards are things we use to cheat. When all magicians know that, and all, card sharks. So we cheat time with cards because we shuffle them. And by shuffling the cards, we accelerate time to force chance to appear. So when I say to you, well, I saw a circle, and then I walk here and there, and then I came back and I saw this tree with that took time and took a lot of waiting. With the cards, we don't have to wait. That's why we like them, because you shuffle them and you accelerate times, and chance has to appear immediately, on command, which is almost bad manners. But in any case, we do it. We like it. And then you realize, well, that space in between the cards is equivalent to the time that transpires between the two sides of a coincidence. It's the same space. You put, one card next to each other and say, yeah, the devil and the tower, the people being chained to this thing, and then the people falling down. I can see the coincidence, And at the same time, that's what happens if you wait. You wait a little bit, and then you start talking to me, then the birds come, and you see the coincidence, or you define it as a coincidence. It takes a little more time. But so I tend to think that coincidences are almost like a state of grace. It's this extra, and I mean literally, the etymological idea of grace is not only like being thankful, but grace is the harmonious arrangement of forms. When we say that somebody is graceful or has grace, what we have is that the forms are arranged in a beautiful way. So you have the sense of being thankful because forms in reality, in time, has arranged, lined up in a beautiful way. So I really appreciated this idea of or the reality of coincidences, as these things are not to be explained or discounted or turn into psychology. It's just the dignity of the moment speaking.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah, this is kind of blew my mind. Wow. So we've been here for almost an hour and a half. I know you said you have all the time in the world, but is there anything we haven't covered that you would like to talk about?
No, I don't know. I think again, my I guess the important thing for me would be we have to find a way of being in the world that makes sense to us and maybe adds something to the table. A lot of that has to do with knowing when we shouldn't put something on the table. I mean, we live in this world of oversharing, right? And I now I know when 2,000 people have dandruff, or if they got the corona vaccine, and I say, I don't need to know. I mean, happy for you, but it's not. Why should I know that? Or when they have they break a bone and then they show you the hole, and say, fine, but I am with you, but at the same time, shut up. So I feel that a lot of what entices to be in the world has to do with learning to shut up. So that will be my main statement, and then I will shut up.
Normally, I ask people if they would perform something for such a end, but I don't know if you're up for that or not.
Well,
Or
in a sense, if presence is performance, all this talk has been a performance. This is
beautiful,
what I
yeah.
do. But I
Yeah, well,
can give you a little bit of this.
okay. Oh yes, let me get rid of me here. Wow, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Enrique.
Tommy. It's fantastic. So, yeah, and we have to get together in person.
Definitely, definitely. I can't wait. If you wouldn't mind waiting until
Sure.
after the show, yeah, I'm gonna put you backstage for a minute. And once again, thank you so
Thank
much.
you
It
so much,
was
and
it
thank you
was
for
very
inviting me.
illuminating to me. If for no other reason, I do this show. I have people on this show for me. If it helps anybody else out, that's great. But
Thank you so much. I really had a great time.
I'm glad. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching the show, I hope you enjoyed it. Enrique Enriquez is, as you heard, a very deep and soulful person, and I really appreciate him being on the show. A few announcements at the end of the month. Also, you can see videos of him on YouTube, and there are a couple of other podcasts of him, and one in particular that I really enjoyed was The Hermit's Lamp, episode 91, Birds and Oracles with uh, Enrique Enriquez, and you can see that on YouTube or listen to it because it's an audio podcast. But also, tomorrow is Omar Illusion's virtual interactive magic theater, and I am one of the performers, and that will be tomorrow from 1 to 2. You just go to omarillusion.nyc, and you can either watch it on Facebook or in Zoom. If you want to be a participant, feel free to watch it in Zoom. And also, at the end of the month is a virtual mystery experience called On My Mind, starring myself and my good friend Omar Illusion. It's only $20, and you can go to my website there on the bottom. And finally, next week we have Meadow Perry, who is unbelievable. She is a bubble magician. She does magic and she does bubble magic, so it's double trouble. And she is in a world. She's like a dream in reality. She's gonna be. I forget she's gonna be pretty famous. Her stuff is really on the mark and very. It's beautiful image-wise, but it's also there's a lot of meaning to it. And as Kenton Nipper says, meaning is the best misdirection. So, having said that, I want to thank you all for watching the show today, and remember that you are the magic, not your props. It's all inside of you, and I will see you next week.